What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next, we are going to be talking about a pretty questionable sale out there that I saw, and just the kinds of things that you might want to look out for and think about when you're pricing comics and looking at what you might want to pay for a comic. Let's check this one out. Right. So before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So like I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about a pretty questionable sale that I saw out there. And does it actually mean that this is what the book is worth? You know, what's the takeaway from that sale? And I've got a few other sales I'm going to talk about as well. Some interesting ones that I've seen over the last few months, and just what your takeaway, what you might want to consider if you were looking to buy one of these books in the future, how you might want to incorporate that sale into your purchase decision. So let's get into this. Now, this one, I mean, I'm going to say off the bat, like, the sale was a fraudulent sale. There's no question about it. I mean, just no question, but we'll get into why, because I think that's what's important here, is talking about why and what you need to look for. And so the book that we're talking about is we're here on GPA, and then I'll go and show the book. So GPA is one of the pricing tools that I use for pricing comics. And so it's this book, Gangsters Can't Win #2. I've owned 2 copies, I believe, in the past. It's a cool book. I think it's a great skull cover from the Golden Age. And you can see it's not a cheap book. I mean, you got a 6.0 that sold last year for $4,000, 5.0 for $2,200, 4.5 $2,040. But then you get down to this one, and this 3.5, $10,100, and you go, something is not right with that sale. So there are cases, and we'll get into this with some of these other ones, where you have books that are super rare, and it's just people have been waiting, and even though the price seems out of line with what you might expect, it kind of makes sense, because if people got enough money and they don't want to wait, they'll pay it. That's not the case really with this book. I mean, you can see, like, it doesn't sell all the time, but especially down in this grade range, you get quite a few sales of this book. And so the other thing, and this is where we start looking at what are the red flags with this sale? What are the types of things that you can look out for? And so one of them is that the day before, a copy sold for $1,395. Then the next day, so April 15th, $1,395. And April 16th, $10,100. The other thing, this number to the right here on GPA is the serial number for the CGC slab, because GPA just pulls in CGC sales. They almost always, at least currently, in the past, they didn't quite as much in the really old stuff, but they always have these serial numbers. You can see they're exactly the same. It's the same book. Clearly, the same book did not sell one day after the other for 8 times, what the prior sale was. So there is no link to the GPA, or in GPA to the eBay sale, but because this was in the last 90 days, we can just go to eBay and see it easily. If it's beyond 90 days, there's other ways, and I'll talk about that too. But these were the sales. So we're on eBay. Gangsters Can't Win, #2, CGC 3.5, 2 books sold. So we had one that says $1,495, best offer accepted, and you can see they accepted $1,395. Then we have another one that says $10,100 with 85 bids. That was one day later, and you can clearly see that it is the exact same book. So if we go down to this one, I mean, and this is where you just look at the flaws. And with Golden Age, that's one of the big pluses with books that are a little bit older, silver, gold, even bronze, to some extent, like different wraps, different flaws. You look for very specific flaws. And I mean, you've got these obvious chips on the right edge here. And then if we go to this one, you again have the exact same obvious chips on the right edge. And so the question is, which one of these sales is real? Why might this have happened? That kind of thing. And I mean, it's hard to speculate exactly what happened, but I don't know if maybe this person made a mistake and accidentally listed the book, because it seems like, I mean, they're a 100% feedback seller. They've got other books up for sale. Like, I checked their history. Nothing else seems weird. And so I wondered if maybe they accidentally listed one fixed price and had one listed for for auction at the same time. Maybe somebody made that mistake and then it sold the fixed price, and then they didn't want to cancel the auction and get a negative feedback or a negative hit on their account. And so that maybe they bid it up themselves, just to ensure that nobody won the book. That's a possibility, but that's why, like, I'm going to say right now, like, this is not a real number. This book is not worth $10,000 in a 3.5. I mean, it's very clearly like you had an 8.5 just in January of 2022, like Peak Comic Boom go for 7,200. And we have these other sales that are fairly recent. I mean, a 2.0 for 850, all that kind of stuff. Like it's not a $10,000 book in that grade. But let's take a look at the actual bidding here. And this is the type of thing that you want to look for. If you think a sale is questionable, like on eBay, what types of red flags might be out there that you want to look for? So we'll go all the way to the beginning of the bidding, and we start going through, and you can see like these bids seem fairly normal. Like this is probably, in a 3.5, I mean, it's probably a $1,500 book, give or take, something like that. I mean, I think that $1,395 is about right. $1,500. And so you have some pretty, standard bids, that kind of thing. Now you start seeing some stuff that jumps out. This is the first one. And this is actually, I think that's new. Maybe that wasn't there the last time I had checked this, but there's a 0 feedback bidder. And it says not a registered user. So they've probably deleted their account since then. That's what I think maybe happened. But like, this is where it feels like someone kicking up the bids on this book. And so, because they keep showing up, you got it here, then you've got, and this was on the 10th, then on the 14th, they show up again, 2 more of them show up again right here. Now we're at what this book is probably approximately worth. And then you start to see a shift to this bidder. There is one of them right here. You see a shift to this bidder that has 85 feedback, and they are all the way to the top. And then occasionally you get one of these 0 feedback bidders, jumping in to boost the price. And so my theory is that this is probably like one of their other accounts. And then this is another account they created to bid it up so that they didn't actually sell the book and, inadvertently sell it twice. That's my theory. I don't know. But that's kind of what it seems like may have happened. But I mean, I can guarantee you that this is not a $10,000 comic book, and that if you are pricing this book out, you should not use that sales number. It's just not worth that. But yeah, this is the type of thing like on an eBay, like, people talk about fraudulent bidding, shill bidding, that kind of stuff. That 100%, that's what this is. I mean, these are the absolute red flags that you see, the 0 feedback, not registered user bids, the exact same bidder, like all the way up. I mean, it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's super sketchy. But the other thing that you can check, because it is actually, it got pulled into GPA with a sale, and I'll probably reach out to GPA and kind of point some of this stuff out to them so they remove the sale so that it's not messing up, sales numbers. But if you go to Terapeak, so if you're not familiar with Terapeak, so what Terapeak is if you have an eBay account, it used to be just for sellers that had stores, but then they made it available to everyone. So if you go under this research tab and go to product research, it will take you to like a page here. I'll just show you product research. It'll take you to a page like this, where you can just search out anything and it will give you the sales data. And the nice thing is that it'll give you trends, like how it'll graph it out, but you can also go back 3 years. And now you don't have links to the sales going back 3 years. So like if you're on eBay's normal sales page and you're searching, you can only go back 90 days and that's where you get the images. This allows you to go back 3 years. Now you can't see close-up images. They don't save all that, but they save all the sales. So you can get a picture of that sales data. So it's a very useful tool if you don't have GPA or Go Collect, even though I still think you should get GPA, Go Collect, that kind of stuff. But let's search for Gangsters CGC 3.5, and this is sales. And so we do that search and you can see there's only one. And it's because it's only showing the sales that have been paid for. At least that's my understanding. It only is showing the sales that have been paid for. I also believe it doesn't show international sales. At least it didn't used to. So just be aware of that as well. You can see here's that one sale paid for. I'm assuming based on this, $1,395. It is that book. If you click on that link, it will take you to that sale and you can see, everything about it. And so this sale, legitimate. The $10,000 sale, not. And it should just be, wiped from GPA. And if it's on Go Collect, it should be wiped from Go Collect as well. It's clearly a fraudulent sale. But so that's the type of thing you can look for. This is a great resource if you have an eBay account. And I think maybe a lot of people don't know about it. And this is just another tool that you can also use if you wanted to see like pricing history for more common books, like stuff that's going to sell on eBay more often, Amazing Spider-Man 300, New Mutants 98, that kind of stuff. Just very useful tool. All right. Now let's check out some of these other sales that have happened over the last few months and just kind of talk through the legitimacy of those sales or how much they might actually impact actual sales prices of books. Because I know a lot of times people jump to the conclusion of shill bidding, and I'm not helping the argument with this one, because that is, I mean, honestly, like that's what this is. Like 100%, this is shill bidding. But if we go to, say, this sale here, this was, I'll show the book. I talked about this one in a live stream. This is Amazing Spider-Man 300, 9.8, signed by Todd McFarlane. Not the newsstand or anything, just a direct edition. This sold for $26,400. That number is insanity. This book, unsigned, right now is going for between like $2,800 and $3,200, like somewhere in that range. And this wasn't that long ago. This is in April. I mean, it was still going about that price point at that point. You add in a McFarlane signature, I mean, maybe it adds, in a 9.8, maybe it adds like $500, maybe a little more. I don't know, something like, let's say like $500. It's not getting much more than $4,000, if anything. This went for $26,400. Now, I know some people will jump out and be like, oh, it's shill bidding and that kind of stuff. But the thing is, I don't see it that way with this, because you've got to consider the book. Because if you're doing something where it's, quote, shill bidding, it's the whole reason, really, if you're not the one, if you're the one that's going to win it, would be that you're trying to make the book appear more expensive so that other people will pay more. This is so out of line that it's not going to have an impact on sales prices. Like if it had gone for, say, 5,000, maybe on the high end, like that's what might push up. Like someone might be like, oh, I thought it was gonna be 4, but it went for 5, that maybe it's worth a little bit more. And that might help push up the value of those books some, if that was your goal, like if you were trying to shill bid and that kind of stuff. But 26,400 is just pure madness. Like you can find this book, and it'll be signed by other people probably too. And you look at the sales prices. I mean, look at this. Like even during peak comic boom, it hit 10. 2021 hit 10. And then the last few sales, we had a low of 4,500, low here in this year of 4,750. I mean, on the same day. Like, where did that other one? Yeah, so on my comic shop. So maybe what happened was that the $26,400 sale happened, and somebody, I wouldn't doubt if this would happen, somebody immediately went over and bought this one. I would not be shocked if that is the sequence of events that happened with this. They saw this sale, they went over to my comic shop, they're like, holy cow, this one's so cheap, and they bought that one. That very well could be what happened with that sale. I mean, let's take a look at this one. I mean, yeah, it's a very similar signature, but it's white instead of yellow. But yeah, I think that's likely what happened, because I've done that. Usually not with this extent, because I don't feel like this is a sale that can actually have an impact, a long-standing impact on prices. Like this is a one-time outlier. That's what this is. This is someone that just paid way, way, way too much, and they are never going to break even on this book. Never. And so this is a one-time outlier. Someone paid way too much. I wouldn't put any more thought to it than that. All right. Now the next book that we are going to talk about here is this one right here, Detective Comics number 8. Now this is a super rare book, 1937, early tech, on the Universal's only 27 on census, is not going to come up for sale very often. Now we had a sale earlier this year of a 1.8 for $17,260. Now this one, we have a 3.0, that in 2022 went for $5,400, a 1.5 in 2022 went for $2,700. Now, granted, I have been seeing early techs they've been getting a premium lately. Like they have definitely been going up, but this is extreme. So I'll say this is extreme. I mean, if you look at the other sales for this book, like this sold for more than an 8.0 back in 2019. I mean, it just a massive sale for this book. And let's check this book out. Like this was on Comic Connect. I mean, and it's not even like a great looking 1.8. It's a decent looking 1.8. It's got a little piece out of the corner. I can't tell if it's just bad lighting in the picture or if it's actually, got a lot of like just dirtiness to the cover that's kind of wiped out some of the colors a little bit. But, and this 15% has already been added. If people are wondering, it's not 17,260 plus 15. It's already incorporated into this price. That is the full price of the book. But this one is an example to me of a book that it's just super rare. And, you hadn't had a sale for about 2 years. And before that, you hadn't had a sale for, let's see, that 1.0 isn't a real sale. You hadn't had a sale for 4 years, 3 years, 2019, so 3 years. And so it's the type of book that if, say, you're someone that's trying to put together a Detective Comics run, the pre-Batman text or something like that. And you just go, you got a couple people that want it and they just don't care. That's what I see as this. I don't necessarily see this as the new pricing for this book. It might be. I mean, it's rare enough that it might be. I have definitely seen a few books pop up since this sale on like Instagram and, people's sales sites and that kind of thing, where they immediately jacked up the price of their book. And I don't blame them for that. I mean, I would do the same thing. You see a massive sale like this for a rare book like this, I'd probably do the same thing. But I don't think that this is likely like if this came up for sale again tomorrow, I don't think it's hitting that number. It might be a lot higher now than what I would have expected. Like I probably would have expected this to go for 4,000 to 5,000 and it went for 17. Maybe now it goes for 10 if it comes up again. But I think it's pretty unlikely it would hit 17 again, like right after this. So that's something where when people ask about pricing, how do you price? Like I've talked about, and it's tougher with rare books, but I like to see confirmation sales. What I mean by confirmation sales is I want to see a second sale, at least a second sale, that shows that this is what this book is really worth. It doesn't have to be the same grade. Maybe it's a 2.5 that comes up and goes for 20, or a 4.5 that comes up and goes for 35 or 40, something like that, that shows like, okay, that's the new baseline for this book. But if I see a 2.0 come up that goes for 10 or 9 or 11 or whatever, that tells me this was an overpay at that time. I mean, granted, like price isn't everything, especially when you're talking super rare stuff, like price isn't everything. But to me, that would make that an overpay. And then it readjusts that price. It's saying like, okay, this was just some excitement because one hadn't sold for a while. And this is the price that happened. So just something to consider if you are pricing out books, if you're trying to determine what to pay. That's often what I'm thinking about with really rare stuff. I like to see confirmation sales. All right. Now the last one we're going to talk about here. Also Detective Comics. Because like I said, I've been seeing some pretty strong trends in Golden Age Detective Comics, especially the earlier stuff. And so this was a 7.0 that sold for $19,200 for a Detective Comics number 47. And so if we look at other sales prices for this, the Promise Collection copy sold in 2021 for $2,400, a 6.5 Promise Collection copy, the pedigree, all that kind of stuff, like great looking book. Only the downside, it just has this like sticker thing here, which I know some people have removed. It was something that the Promise Collection collector did for a lot of the early books. They put some sticker over it with the number. I don't know why, because it's not like it's number 8 for the appearance of Batman. I don't know exactly why it has those certain numbers on it. But, like 2,400 for a 6.5. And then you had, going back here, this sale was after that one. So we'll talk about that later. A 3.0 for 1,700, a 2.0 for 1,560. I mean, so I was thinking, I think when I talked about this one, like 4,000, but I wouldn't have been surprised if it went for maybe 5 or 6. But I talked about this during that live stream, that this was already sitting at like 10 before the live bidding even started. And I didn't think that it would actually bump up anymore. I was like, oh, this is what it's going to get. And it got almost doubled in the live, went for 19,200. I mean, it's a good looking book, but it's not to me, it's not a $19,200 book. But there were 2 people that felt that way. You don't bid up like this with just one person, it's gotta be 2 people bidding. And the thing that you could consider with it is that you haven't had a book in this type of grade range. Like I'll call it VF, because 7.0, it's fine, very fine. So in the VF range for 5 years. You know, we had a 7.5 go for 2150 back in 2018. You had the Promise Collection, which was the closest 3 years ago for 2400. But it could just be maybe there's somebody that they wanted that higher end copy. And when you get a couple people that have enough money and they don't want to wait anymore, this is what can happen. Now, the takeaway to me with that is that, again, I don't think that this is a repeatable sale. If a 7.0 came up again tomorrow, I think it's not going to even break 10. That's my opinion. I think it's not even going to break 10. Now, the interesting thing was that, so this sale was in January of 2024. That did impact this price. Absolutely. 4.5 going for 4,255. I mean, look at that. Look at that gap up. From 2021, it went up 4x. And let's see, where did this one sell? Sold on Comic Connect. You know, and so it went on bids. Like I guarantee you that that had an impact on this price. Now, to me, this doesn't mean that this book this isn't a confirmation sale for 20,000. This is a confirmation sale that maybe it actually is like a $10,000 book, a $9,000 or $10,000 book, but it's not really a confirmation sale to me for a $19,000 sale. That's how I would look at that sale. I think, again, it's a one-time blip, but it definitely impacted prices below it, because in my opinion, there is no way this book, this 4.5, would have sold for 4,255 without this $19,000 sale. So it definitely had an impact. I don't think it's, and I don't think those are anything like shill bidding and that kind of stuff. I think a lot of those, like this stuff where it's especially rare or rare in grade, I think it's just two people that really want it and have enough money that they don't care, you know, like where they can afford to say, like, I'm willing to lose 10 grand so that I can own this book, you know, in this grade. And I think that happens a fair amount. You know, I've talked about that in some other videos where it can be hard to put yourself into the perspective of someone that has that kind of money, you know, where they can afford to lose 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, and it doesn't really impact their life in any meaningful way. And those are the people that can do that kind of bidding. And so I know a lot of people immediately jump to like shill bidding, and I know it happens. Like, I'm not saying like shill bidding never happens. I know it happens, but I think it doesn't happen as much as people think it does. But those are all the books I wanted to talk about here. Hopefully this helps out with pricing and what you might want to look at if you're looking for some of these books that either are rare or rare in grade, or in the case of the Amazing Spider-Man 300, you know, not rare at all, and how that might impact the sales of these books in other grades or other copies that come up. I mean, when you see that stuff happen, absolutely, on the fixed price market, people are immediately gonna jump their prices. I mean, absolutely, that's what's gonna happen. But in those cases, what you probably want to do, if you've got some patience and you can't afford to lose 10,000 or whatever, then what you want to do is wait for an auction and see what happens at that next auction. But hopefully this helps. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell, all that kind of stuff. I got more videos over here if you'd like to watch some of my other videos. Subscription button is right here. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video.